Kofi Annan, thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot of concern around the world actually about inflation, about food prices, and about how we can tackle this. What is your major concern for 2011?
I think food scarcity is definitely one of them. We tend to forget when we are in a place like Davos that for many people around the world, 80, 90, 50% of their salary goes towards food. So when the food prices double or increase by 30%, it's a really serious problem for them and their families. And so the question of high food prices and agricultural production and the whole global system of food security is something that we need to take very seriously. And of course, given the demographics and the fact that the populations are increasing, we will need to produce more food to feed them. But hopefully, we will be able to do it using better approaches and not necessarily cutting down trees to expand agricultural land. Ideally, we should be able to get more food from the same land, have the right inputs, and assist the farmers to produce the food that we all depend on.
So we've seen some very, very serious rioting and protests, first in Tunisia and now in Egypt. Is this something that's just going to get worse as people grow discontent, they will take to the streets?
Yeah, I think the developments we are seeing in that region is not only because of food prices. I think there is a craving for change. There's craving for reforms. And I think reforms and change has also to be managed and managed effectively. We heard of young people who are out of university and have been unemployed for a long time. This leads to frustration. And governments need to have a specific policy of employment for the youth. You know, often in economic discussions, governments focus on inflation, they focus on interest rates, they focus on growth rates, but very few of them discuss specifically what do we do to create jobs for the young people who are coming out of universities. And I think perhaps the system, the educational system, should also have other outlets for them where they can be given skills when they leave school to get employment or start something on their own.
But is it not very difficult actually to think of these things when we're just getting over a recession, when the Western economy isn't growing and therefore not really buying many goods?
Yeah, no, you have a difficult economic climate, but the issue of public policy, a public policy where governments decide we are going to focus on the welfare of our people, we are going to ensure that they have good health, good education, and good jobs, is a long-term and ongoing sort of thing. And governments should have had this in place. It's not just today. One should start thinking about it and saying it's difficult because of economic situation. And it is difficult for the leaders and people in the region. And I think those of us outside have to be careful how we react to the developments. I mean, Western leaders, for example, have to be careful in what they say. They have to be circumspect. In some cases, a praise or condemnation of one leader or the other is a kiss of death. And either they are seen as pro-West and the West is going to use them, or we've seen it in Ivory Coast, one side accusing the other side of being a puppet of the West. And so in these times of crisis, we have to be careful. Yes, we should be concerned, we should show sympathy, we should think about how does one help to steer the situation right and improve and move on. But comments that can be misquoted and used as to fan conflicts or tensions, we should avoid.
But so is there a danger that actually we're going to see a lot of change in governments because of dissatisfaction and because of...
You know, my good friend Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize economist, Amartya once said as a young boy he lived through famine in India where he had very little to eat. Since then, India has gone through a green revolution and takes food security very seriously. In fact, he walked out of that experience with one observation, a very insightful and fundamental observation, that people in democracy do not starve.
It's very true.
And this is part of the lesson we should draw from what's happening around us.